Browns back on the practice field today, getting ready for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A little bonus practice as they play on Monday Night Football. They'll take Wednesday off, and then it's back at it for real on Thursday, Mary Kay. And there were some familiar faces back on the field for the Browns, which was a good thing. Myles Garrett stayed off to the side. John Johnson stayed off to the side. But a number of key players back actually on the practice field for this football team.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of weird to look out there at practice and see a bunch of guys that we have seen and watched practice all season long. There was Jadeveon Clowney, going through the bags with a vengeance. There was Malik McDowell doing the same thing. And then over there in the secondary, you had Ronnie Harrison back. You had Jed Wills Jr. over there working with the offensive line, which of course means that Joel Bitonio will be back inside at left guard. So 8 guys came back yesterday, and some of those guys were on the practice field today.
Now, 2 guys we didn't see out there, and they're big names, obviously. Kareem Hunt, who's been out with an injury, and also Troy Hill, who was on the COVID list. Kareem Hunt was on the COVID list too, but both also were dealing with injuries. 2 key players, Troy Hill on defense, of course, playing that nickel spot, and Kareem Hunt, we know what he can do on offense. Having these guys back for these last 2 games would be enormous.
I really think it would be. I mean, we've seen what these guys can do. They come up big in the clutch. Kareem Hunt in that playoff game last year in Pittsburgh, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was running through the wall, 48 yards rushing alone, and he just takes a little bit of that pressure off Nick Chubb, helps Nick stay fresh for the fourth quarter. So it'd be a tremendous boost to have him back. And as you mentioned, Troy Hill. I mean, he is just so money as that nickelback. Fortunately, they've had MJ Stewart coming through for them, as you just wrote about in a big way. But Troy Hill, he does a really good job at that nickel position, and they really need him too.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on if both of those guys are able to come back. Like I said, not at practice today, but still a ways to go before we get to that Pittsburgh game on Monday night. Now, speaking of that game, Mary Kay, we talked to Denzel Ward today. And he talked about going against Big Ben Roethlisberger. Of course, many people remember that first game that he played, his first career game. Ward had a pretty big afternoon in that tie against the Steelers. So, Mary Kay, what are you expecting from Denzel here in Big Ben's finale at Heinz Field?
I've been so impressed with Denzel Ward in the second half of the season. I mean, he is the lockdown corner that they need him to be. He's coming up with big plays. It's really hard to complete a pass on him. He has 3 interceptions in the second half of the season, and he's just been kind of lights out. And I think it will be more of the same in these final 2 games. He has sort of peaked at the right time when they really need him. And I just wrote the Denzel Ward story and said that, he would like to kind of close out his career against Ben, who will probably be retiring, in the same way he started it, with 2 interceptions.
And, just with all this chaos on the defensive side of the football, all the guys that have been in and out of the lineup for various reasons, a lot of it COVID, but also a lot of it injury related. Denzel has just sort of been that lockdown guy that they've been able to count on. He had a little injury trouble early in the year, but came back quickly. And he's been incredibly reliable in a season where it's just tough to keep guys on the field.
Yeah. And you know what about that, Dan? It means that he is going to get paid in the offseason in a big way. There is no question that they will extend Denzel Ward as soon as they can. And he stands to make probably $19 million a year, maybe a little bit more than that. He's going to hit the jackpot, and he deserves it.
Okay, there we go. The day in Berea here on cleveland.com. We'll cover everything leading up to that Steelers game on Monday Night Football. An absolutely enormous game for both teams on one of the game's biggest stages. You can follow along at cleveland.com/Browns.